What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Buffalo State College Bengals Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. The Bengals have a bye week this week, so it's the perfect time to look at some more recruiting, as looking into it, the Bengals have won 3 straight games and have 4 solid challenges to finish off the year, including first-year MAC conference team Army, who is 6-1 overall. Leon Jacobs has been absolutely explosive and has been the big reason that Buffalo State has been able to win with a backup quarterback in Adrian Armstrong. DJ Lee has also had a breakout senior campaign with 429 yards and 4 touchdowns. Entering this bye week, Buffalo State has the 24th ranked class in the country and have used all 12 of their available scholarships. And we will be taking a look at all of the players that they have brought in today, as we see a familiar face in Bender Rover, but the rest of them have not been reviewed just yet. I personally am very excited about this recruiting class, as I feel like they did an excellent job of filling their needs, especially with so many juniors and seniors on the roster. The youth has to be in good position for them to have success into the future. From Tony Hawkins to Jay Woods to Leon Jacobs to Billy Myers, I feel like the foundation is in place for Buffalo State to have success moving forward. In the last special, we covered all of the blue chip prospects, and here's an update on where some of them are going as we move forward. But a guy we haven't talked about just yet is Mickey Kalea. We'll get to him in a second, but as you can see, Ernie Steele preferring Pac-12 schools, Fresco Bundles staying down south in the SEC, and Aiden Alonso is on track to visit Army. Hopefully we don't have to see him once a year. I mentioned Mickey Kalea, and he is a hard-hitting strong safety with coverage ability out of Honolulu, Hawaii. In my mind, he is the complete package and the best safety in this class, as he has coverage ability and very good ball skills. However, his strongest trait is his big hitting ability. He is the hardest hitting player, arguably, in this entire class, and it is very easy to see why he is highly coveted. He's obviously not in position to go to Buffalo State, but he is what you would call the hardest hitting safety in the league, and he puts the team on his back consistently. Kalea is the type of player that Buffalo State wants to have a shot with in the future, and can only be a pipe dream at this point in the Malik Dupree era. We are also going to be taking a look at the current recruiting class, highlighted by guard Chris Turner at the very top. He's the highest rated player, and I feel like he has a very high upside as an excellent player, being a balanced blocker. The linemen that Buffalo State recruited last year were either a run blocker in Marcus Blaylock or a pass blocker in Ryan Jones. Turner can do just about everything, and he is probably the most fundamentally polished player on Buffalo State's recruiting board. Very, very excited for him to get here and compete to be a day one starter. Buffalo State recruited 2 linebackers last season, and they'll do the same thing this year. Michael Washington is their second target behind Bender Rover, and he's a rangy, very balanced player to fit Bender Rover's thumping skill set. He can hit, he can cover, he can rush the passer especially well, and I feel like he's going to be a great fit on the outside to replace Lamar Keys. He's an excellent player. He's already committed like all of these players that we are talking about today, but he is not the flashiest player, but has a very exciting skill set, very similar to Tony Hawkins, who has had an excellent season with the team so far and is only getting better. Michael Washington, look out. Moving forward, we had another player. It's tight end Chris Peterson. We recruited a tight end in Chris Johnson last season to be more of a receiver, and I feel like Peterson is more of a blocker on the edge. BJ Simmons is leaving, and of course, he's more of a receiving threat overall, but ultimately, since Buffalo State recruited a receiving tight end last season, they wanted to go big up front and went with more of a blocker this time around. Although Peterson is very athletic and does have field stretching ability, his receiver skills aren't necessarily elite. Expect him to get a lot of playing time over the next couple seasons, though. I feel like he could be a player who is extremely underlooked, and he does have potential to come into his own as a very balanced tight end who at least has a floor of a solid second guy. Another guy we are looking at that didn't have any film is Joey Hall, who's a big back at 6', 241. He has good athleticism for his size, is very strong, and has a variety of moves he can use. I think he's going to be the perfect complement to Leon Jacobs as a change-the-pace guy. Zach Jennings is a guy who I believe could start on the outside potentially, and may even push Shelton Stewart, who we recruited last year, to start in the nickel. He's a very scrappy player on the outside, a hard-hitting corner related to Stewart, but I think his fundamentals coming in are better than Shelton Stewart's were, especially his man coverage ability, and that is why he is a 3-star while Stewart was a 2-star. He's a good athlete and probably going to project as a boundary corner, but we will definitely have to see what happens as he has a very diverse skill set and one that Buffalo State can use extensively. One of the most exciting players on the board this season is 6'6" wide receiver Ryan Baker. He didn't start playing football until about his sophomore season and is very raw as a receiver, but he was a track star all through high school and placed in state in many different events as he ran the 400, the 800, you name it. Baker is an incredible player. He has a chip on his shoulder, and while he isn't the greatest wide receiver yet per se, he did show plenty of flashes with his natural athleticism and massive frame that allow him to have a competitive advantage over guys who maybe played football their entire life. However, that won't fly at the college level. We'll have to see what Malik Dupree can do with a athletic phenom like Ryan Baker. Another guy we didn't get footage on is Justin Henderson, who is a 2-star underlooked offensive lineman. As I mentioned, we couldn't get a look at him due to finding him later in the process and the coronavirus already being pretty serious, but they really like his film and they're excited to have him on board. If you haven't seen the last recruiting episode, I will put that in the end screen, but for now, Braxton Liberty, a blue chipper we discussed last time, has committed to Auburn to be a Tiger. He is out of the MAC. That is great news. As we mentioned, Jonathan Thousand committed to Ohio State over Army. We are definitely glad we don't have to see him in conference, but looking at the top 25, a lot unsettled. We have many Pac-12 and SEC teams that are still undefeated, and any loss from any of them could plummet them down the boards and really influence the college football playoff results. In MAC play, it's a very competitive conference as well, as we see Central Michigan taking down Northern Illinois, and Army destroys Bowling Green 31-17 to remain 5-0 in conference at the top of our division. We play them next week, and that is going to be very exciting as it could potentially decide who is going to win the East Conference in the MAC. I honestly was not expecting the MAC conference to be so much fun to play in, but I am having an absolutely great time as we've seen challenging teams and built rivals from Miami of Ohio getting 2 of our transfers, to Army coming in, to NIU trashing us, and even Akron beat us last season. We play Army next week, as I mentioned, and they are absolutely loaded and run the flexbone look with their quarterback Kelvin Hopkins, who is very, very talented. The team's going to have to eat their Wheaties for sure. Looking at Akron, they're not super talented on paper, but don't forget that this is the team that arguably gave us our most embarrassing loss of the season last year. They completely destroyed us. That being said, though, I hope you really enjoyed this second scouting episode. Please like and subscribe for the love of franchise and dynasty content. That is all we do here. And remember, we can build a winner together at Buffalo State. Take care, everybody.